It's lights out and away we go. Once again, Max Verstappen gets a decent start. Verstappen's ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Not going to get a chance to weave because already Hamilton is with them. They almost touch. They go into Brooklands. Verstappen stays ahead. The two championship contenders giving it everything.
These are critical corners for this Grand Prix.
Hamilton's going to try again, this time on the inside, a continent touch! Verstappen is out of the race and that's a big crash into Cobbs! For the second time this season, Hamilton and Verstappen clash and tangle on the opening lap, but this time it is ending in dramatic consequences for the championship leader.
This weekend is the 2022 edition of the British Grand Prix, and today we're going to do a video on a chance at redemption, as it is titled, for Max Verstappen. Of course, last year was the 2021 edition, so we're going to have to talk about, yes, the incident that happened last year between Verstappen and his championship rival at the time, Lewis Hamilton. So, for those of you who don't know, there was a crash last year in this race, one of the most controversial moments of the season. One of the biggest moments, really kind of triggered everything else that happened this season in terms of controversy, in terms of incidents, really. Of course, they would go on to have a few more crashes later in the season, and of course the title was decided in a controversial fashion as well. So yeah, let's just kind of talk about the build up to this race, and then we'll talk about kind of the redemption part at the end. We got to kind of prepare, I guess, and talk about the 2021. So up until the 2021 British Grand Prix, Max Verstappen was leading the World Championship by 32 points, and Red Bull was leading the Constructors' title by 44 points. Verstappen had 5 wins on the season, coming at Monaco, Imola, France, Styria, and Austria. Of course, Styria, they did like a doubleheader in Austria, so Styria was like another Austria. So, you know, 4 different tracks, 5 different wins so far. And as I said, he had a 32-point lead entering this race, and he was on a 3-race win streak. Of course, Mercedes up to this point had won, 7 straight Constructors' Championships. Lewis Hamilton had won 4 straight Drivers' Championships. So, you know, people want to see eras end for sure, but, you know, it was looking pretty good for Verstappen and Red Bull. And coming into this weekend, it was going to be a new kind of qualifying format. You had the first ever F1 sprint format prepared for the weekend, where instead of qualifying based on time, it was going to be, you did that time qualifying, but it's for a 17-lap race, and that would decide the order. So in the 2 practice sessions there were, Verstappen was quickest. Not much else to it, he was quickest. But then something different happened in the qualifying for the sprint race. Lewis Hamilton was actually quickest, and he was on pole for the sprint. He beat Verstappen by less than 1/10 of a second. So that was the traditional qualifying format that he had beat Verstappen in, and was going to be able to start on pole in his home race over Max Verstappen to try to get the pole. However, right off the line, pretty quickly, Verstappen got a fiery start, pun intended there, because his brakes were literally on fire at the start of the sprint race, and Verstappen was able to hold on and win the first ever F1 sprint. And of course, the top 3 last year got points, like, you know, championship points for winning or getting a top 3 in the sprint. So Verstappen actually extended his world championship lead by winning the sprint. Hamilton got second, Bottas got third, so the constructors' gap stayed the same, but the drivers' gap gained by 1 point, so it went from 32 to 33 points. Then entering the race, of course, Verstappen is on pole, Hamilton with him on the front row, between the World Championship leaders right there on the front row. There had only been really one incident between the 2 championship contenders up to this point at Imola. Verstappen started on the second row, had an amazing start, was able to get past his teammate Perez, was side by side with Hamilton on the inside heading into Tamburello, and he sent it, to say the least. He didn't wreck Hamilton, he didn't put Hamilton in the grass, but Hamilton did go wide, and he went over those bumpy curbs. I forget what they're called, but yeah, he forced him a little bit wide there. No big damage to Hamilton done. Obviously, he lost a position. Verstappen would go on to win the race. Hamilton would have an incident later in the race, but would recover to finish second. So it's controversial there for sure, but it wasn't like season defining moment in terms of, someone got a DNF or something, where as what was coming next in Great Britain was a season-defining moment. We had a great first half lap of this race. Great racing, side by side, back and forth, switching lines. Everything was going great. And then the critical corners of that Grand Prix happened. Lewis Hamilton decided to send it into the inside cops. And Verstappen went in there too. And Hamilton missed the turn a little bit. And what happened next was Verstappen was sent into the wall at 51 Gs. Verstappen went from leading the race or fighting for the win of the race or the lead of the race on lap 1 to hitting the wall extremely hard, and that ending the race. He had to go get checked in the hospital after that, got all these medical checks. He ended up being okay He raced a couple weeks later at Hungary, so, he did end up being okay, but still, after such a promising weekend, after such a good weekend for him up to that point, it ended up being the worst possible outcome because his championship rival, who he had a 33-point lead on, would go on to win the race despite a 10-second time penalty. So, he lost all those points that he had built up on Hamilton in one race from one incident, from one crash, one of the most controversial crashes of the year and maybe for a good bit. Obviously a lot of controversy there. So then there was a bunch of team stuff and the FIA and discussions and people mad and social media screaming at each other. So that happened, but Verstappen wasn't happy with how, I guess, Hamilton and Mercedes celebrated the race win afterwards, when Verstappen was in the hospital and all that stuff. But, of course, very controversial incident for sure. But, of course, later on in the season, Verstappen would go on to win the World Championship. That was in controversial style, too. Nothing to his doing, but, so Verstappen, Hamilton, they had this incident. Calendarly, not 1 year ago, but race-wise 1 year ago. So Max Verstappen, 2022, where is he now? Well, he has won a world championship since then. He currently leads the world championship by 46 points over his teammate Sergio Perez. Lewis Hamilton, however, Mercedes has struggled with this new car, and Hamilton is 6th in the standings with 77 points. Obviously very different situations for those, or I guess one of them is in a same situation, fighting for the world championship. The other one is not. But heading into this Grand Prix, what chance of redemption is there, and is it possible? The chances are very high. Is it possible? Absolutely, because Verstappen is in arguably probably the best car on the grid right now in the Red Bull. Red Bull has won 7 of the 9 races this year. Verstappen has won 6 of 9 this year. Very nice. And as I said, he's leading the World Championship by a good chunk, almost a 2-race lead over his teammate. So Ferrari has looked good this year. They've won a couple of races, but through faults of their own, through their cars breaking down, they have not been able to win as much as they would have liked to. And so this gives Verstappen a very good chance at redemption. After all that last year, after the incident, the post-race stuff, everything that happened last year with the crash, so I would say Verstappen has a great chance at redemption. What's my prediction going to be? I thought about making one of these for the same race for Charles Leclerc, but I decided not to. We're just going to do Verstappen, and I am going to predict that Max Verstappen does indeed get redemption. Red Bull has looked like the fastest car all year long. Straight line speed has been pretty good. Silverstone seems like a pretty fast track, so I expect Red Bull to be strong there as they've been all season long. They had early reliability issues, but they've seemed to pick up the pace on that, even though Perez had a DNF last week. Hopefully they get that sorted out. But if Ferrari keeps on Ferrarying, I think Verstappen's got a great shot at redemption, so I'm going to predict it. Max Verstappen gets himself some redemption for the 2021 crash through no fault of his own to win the 2022 British Grand Prix. But I thought this was a fun video idea, just kind of, the whole thing with the 2021 incident and everything that happened there, entering the 2022 weekend. I'm sure there are going to be questions about it, kind of reflecting on it. So I thought, me too. Why shouldn't I reflect on that incident? It was like 8:05 in the morning, and I screamed. I was shocked. I was like, wow, holy crap. That's crazy. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. But yeah, got a couple videos for you guys next weekend. I think this is going to be my last video of the week. This is really the last time I have internet until Saturday or Sunday. But Saturday qualifying video is slim chance, I would say. Sunday race video, I would say, is likely, but it's going to be short. It's going to be a quick recap. It's going to be under 5 minutes, so we'll see how that goes, see how the British Grand Prix goes, see if there's going to be another incident. If Mercedes really does have these big, bad upgrades, is there going to be another incident? I doubt it, but would be interesting. Anyways, thanks for watching.